Manchester United travel to Everton in the Premier League this weekend, and believe it or not, they're ahead of us in the league table, 14th, play 15th. We're going to talk about a number of different things on the match preview today, guys. Injuries, especially to midfield. Can the youth step up, and will Ruben Amorim use them? We're of course going to talk about Everton and how well they're doing at the moment. We're going to get into our predicted 11 and of course our score predictions as well. Please do smash a like on the video, subscribe if you're new. Let's jump straight into it. Welcome back to the channel. As always, guys, I do appreciate you tuning in, and we're going to get started with the injuries to Manchester United. And of course, it's been a bad maybe week or 10 days or so when it's come to injuries. And of course, we are going to start, of course, with Ahmad, and he's going to be a massive loss to Manchester United. I think the percentage of goals we've scored this season from Ahmad has been 42% of all of the goals we've scored, which is really, really not good then when he's missing for the remainder of the season. And we can count him in the midfield category when, we're talking about injuries. Of course, he's played wing back a couple of times, but the majority of the time he has played in that number 10 role. And he's been quite pivotal to how we've played and how dangerous we've looked going forward. And for a team that scores very few goals, Ahmad being out and 42% of your goals disappearing for the remainder of the season, it isn't good. He's not the only one though, however. We are missing, of course, Kobbie Mainoo as well, who is going to be out for up to a month. I think he's kind of eyeing a return around the end of the March international break. So you could be talking as far as April before he returns and is available for or for first team duties. It's not good. It really, really isn't. And it's a big concern, especially when we're talking about a team that lacks confidence, a team that lacks maybe a bit of creativity. Kobbie Mainoo obviously was playing in that number 10 role before he got injured, had a couple of good performances. But Ruben Amorim has been kind of drip feeding him in and out of the team over the last 4 months since he's been there. And, I think that's probably the right thing to do. We've spoken an awful lot about not wanting to put too much pressure on younger players. And it's a shame that Manchester United are so over-reliant on young players at the moment because we don't really have the quality and the depth within the squad. So, the likes of Kobbie Mainoo is being maybe relied upon a little bit more than maybe he should be at such a young age. Now, we do have injuries as well last week, specifically to Mamadou Ugarte and to Toby Collier. Now, again, these are seen as knocks. It's unclear yet whether these two are going to be available for the game against Everton. We need them back. We absolutely do need them back because we're paper thin at the moment in midfield. We really are. When you're talking about having to use the likes of Casemiro in a game against Everton, who are flying at the moment, Everton are a very fast-paced team. We've seen how well they played against Liverpool a couple of weeks ago. You would need to have your number one players back. And look, it's quite clear that Ruben Amorim doesn't really rate Casemiro too much. And look, we know Casemiro's time at Manchester United, I was going to say, is coming to an end, but we're not really too sure about that. He spoke during the week that, he loves Manchester. He loves playing for Manchester United. He's got 18 months left on his deal and he wants to see it out. I think he's one of the few players that we could potentially get some money for in the summer, especially if he moves to somewhere like Saudi Arabia. And he's also the highest earner at the club on 350 grand a week. And when he's not playing week in, week out, you want to kind of clear the books and get him off the books. So the likes of Toby Collier and Mamadou Ugarte, you would hope, can come back and be available. Talks during the week as well, guys, have kind of landed on Sekou Kone, a young player that has been signed by Manchester United last summer. Again, he's playing in the youth and the underage setup. Very, very talented young player and one, absolutely for the future at Manchester United. Some reports are suggesting that Ruben Amorim has been impressed with him. He has been training a couple of times with the first team. He's yet to feature, of course, in the senior competition for Manchester United. And again, we go back to what we've been speaking about an awful lot over the last maybe week or so, 10 days. How much can Manchester United rely on the youth? I think we're going to have to be quite honest, over the next few weeks and months between now and the end of the season. Our squad is paper thin. And when you've got some young talent in the squad, you want to try and use them as much as you possibly can. And I think that's something that we could do over the next few weeks. The one thing I would say about youth and players that are coming in and looking to make a name for themselves, you can rely on them. You can always rely on them. They will always give you 100%. They are looking to make a name for themselves. They are desperate to get on the field and make a senior appearance for Manchester United. And when we look at the bench that was available to Manchester United against Spurs the other day, it's in one way it's great to see, and in another way it's terrifying to see, because you look at Victor Lindelof here in the middle, or sorry, the second from the left. I think there was a crazy stat. Let's say I think it was 291 senior appearances for Manchester United was on the bench, and 290 of them were Victor Lindelof, and the only other one was Adrian Heaven, and he played that one senior appearance for Arsenal. You know what I mean? So it's crazy to think. But it's great to see the amount of youth that's there, and the amount of youth that maybe is potentially coming through that could play in the first team in years to come. But the one thing I would say is that you will always get a couple of good games out of any youth player that comes in. I mean, name me a youth player that has come in through Manchester United in the past 20 years that hasn't had a really good maybe 3 or 4 games. And I think that's what Ruben Amorim could potentially look at trying to maybe harness between now and the end of the season. And none more so than, of course, Chido Obi. He has been the standout underage player. He qualifies to play for the under-18s, but he's been banging in goals at under-21 level. He still hasn't really played for the under-23s either, but he made his debut last week. Again, I didn't agree on what Ruben Amorim done. I thought he should have given him more game time. However, he made his debut, and it goes to show the trust maybe that Ruben Amorim has in him. I would like to see him get more game time and prolonged periods on the pitch, especially when we have the struggles up front with the likes of course, Rasmus Højlund is going through a really, really bad patch at the moment, and he just looks void of confidence. And then we've got Joshua Zirkzee as well, who, is not going to come out and bag you 20 goals a season. He's not a number 9. So I think Chido Obi Martin, the more game time we can get under his belt this season, I think the more he will improve. But again, I would be using him sparingly, bringing him in, bringing him out, so there's not that pressure on him to go out and score goals, because I don't think it's quite beneficial to such a young kid. But again, like I said, Makeda, you could even go to the likes of Josh Harrop and these types of players that scored on their debut under Jose Mourinho all of them years ago. You will get performances out of new young youth players coming in, because they're so desperate to impress and so desperate to perform. And I think once maybe 4, 5, 6 games are in, when the dust settles, that's when you start to see maybe a little drop off, and you can start really judging them properly. But for them first 4 or 5 games, I think Ruben Amorim can certainly use some of these youths. Now, guys, let's talk about Everton. And, I mean, David Moyes has done an absolutely fantastic job since he's come back in as Everton manager for his second stint. And he was speaking when he rejoined the club that, you kind of got the impression from him that he's saying, look, I'm here to steady the ship. I'm not going to be here for another 5-10 years. And, when you've got new ownership coming in, so on and so forth, he's done an absolutely fantastic job. And when we look at the league table, guys, here's Everton in 14th. They're above us in the league table by a point. But look at the form over the last 5 games. They are the most in-form team alongside Arsenal at the moment in the Premier League. When we look at this, 4 wins and a draw out of their last 5 games. When we go up along the table, you don't see that with any other team until you get to Arsenal in second place with 4 wins and a draw. Even Liverpool, who are top of the table at the moment, have got 2 draws and 3 wins out of their last 5. So Everton at the moment are absolutely flying it in the Premier League. And we are playing... It's typical, isn't it? We're coming in to play the most informed team in the league at the moment. And not only are they getting wins, they're scoring goals. When we look at their last few games in the league, 2 against Crystal Palace, they scored 2 against Liverpool, they scored 4 against Leicester City and 1 against Brighton, and 3 against Spurs. They are scoring goals at the moment. And, if we're talking about playing a team that going up against a team that you don't want to play at the moment, it's probably Everton. And David Moyes has really, really turned the ship around there. And it's their final season in Goodison Park. So every game is going to be exciting for them. Every game is going to mean something. And especially when United come to town. Historically, we've had a good record against Everton. But again, I mean, I'm a bit concerned going into this game when United are playing how they're playing and Everton coming into a really good spell of form under David Moyes. It's going to be a very difficult game. I think we probably will see from Manchester United, what we've seen over the past few weeks in the start of the game and for the first maybe 20, 25 minutes, a slow, methodical, maybe boring start to the game. And what that does is it slows down the opposition. It maybe quietens the crowd down a little bit. And I think that's probably what we're going to have to do against Everton and try and score some goals in the second half. But make no qualms about it. We are going in to play the most informed team in the Premier League at the moment. And it's not going to be easy. Now, guys, let's jump into our starting 11. And yeah, I mean, I don't see an awful lot of changes, to be quite honest with you. I really, really don't. If we look at it here, this is the team that started against Spurs last week. And if we go through it from back to front, obviously Andre Onana is going to continue in the goal. Bieler had a bit of a knock a couple of weeks ago, which kept him out of the cup game. It looks like Onana is going to play every league game. In terms of the back three, guys, I mean, De Ligt was at fault for the goal, in my opinion, against Spurs on the weekend. But outside of that, I thought we were quite comfortable in defence. Now, Spurs are not going to really give you an awful lot of trouble. But I think, and I go back and saying it, while we find ourselves in 15th in the league table, I don't think the defence has been the biggest concern this season. Obviously, we know our lack of goals on the other end of the pitch. I think if we were putting our chances away, I think our defence has been doing a relatively good job at trying to keep goals out on the other end. The only real change that you could see potentially making here is, I think Maguire and De Ligt are going to remain. The only other real change is that maybe if Mazraoui came over and played at wing back instead of Delort, you could bring in Lenny Yoro. Now, Lenny Yoro, you know, he's only coming back from a knock as well. Is he going to come straight into the starting 11? Probably not. So I think for that reason, we probably are going to see Mazraoui stay in the back three. And I think Mazraoui has been doing fantastic in the back three, to be quite honest with you. He's been a fantastic signing for us. And to get him, I think, was it for around, it was less than 20 million. Absolutely great piece of business. So I think the back three is probably going to remain the same, guys. When we look at the wing backs, again, because the back three are remaining the same, I don't see why we would change. And I don't see any real options to change the wing backs. I thought Dorgu had a really good game against Spurs. Him and Xerxes were our two best performers, in my opinion. Delort on the other side, I mean, Delort continues to struggle in the wing back role. He really does. And I think down to the lack of options, I think we would probably see him out of the team. And we've seen a lot of links, obviously, with Kenda from Sporting for the summer. It does look like Manchester United are going to go and try and strengthen that right wing back position. But for the moment, I think Delort remains. Now, midfield. I mean, the two number sixes. I felt sorry for Casemiro against Spurs on the weekend. I really did, because it was actually the other way around. Bruno was playing on the left and Casemiro was on the right of the two sixes. And what was happening was Bruno was dropping out defensively into the left. I'm actually wrong. I apologise. It was the other way around. Casemiro was on the left and Bruno was on the right. Bruno was dropping into this position and into these positions against Spurs on the weekend, and it was down to the fact that we didn't have Amat playing in the number 10, that natural attacker there, and Bruno was kind of coming out to give Delort a hand at times, and what it was doing was it was leaving a huge hole in midfield for Casemiro to try and I don't know what I'm after doing there, but it was leaving a huge hole in the middle for Casemiro to try and cover, and it just didn't work. It just did not work. All of this space here, Casemiro was trying to cover because Bruno was, going a bit AWOL. And I don't know whether this was a tactic from Ruben Amorim to help us out on that right hand side, but Casemiro in his prime would struggle to cover all of the ground against Spurs, and I think we need to get more athleticism into midfield. And I think Bruno needs to be more structured in especially the defensive side of his game. I don't mind when we're going forward, if he wants to pop up in these positions, left and right and through the middle, whatever the case may be. But when we're getting defensive, he's got to transition back into this position and keep it hard to play through the middle. It's got to be the case. It really, really does. But I think we need to get some athleticism into our midfield. Casemiro for Ugarte, I think, is probably going to be And again, this is all down to whether Ugarte is going to be available or not, but I think it's probably going to be the most likely change. Ugarte can cover more ground, but again, he's not bloody Superman. You know, Bruno Fernandes, if he is going to be playing in this 6, you know, for the next few weeks and months, has got to be more mindful of how he plays defensively, you know. But I think that's probably what's going to happen, is what I would like to see. And I think one of the other main reasons why Bruno will continue to play in the 6 is because we've got no one else really there. Obviously, Collier can come in, but you don't want to be over-reliant on Collier. That would allow Bruno Fernandes to maybe move up into the 10. But, yeah, I mean, that could work as well. But I think for the moment, we're probably going to see Bruno remain. And I do think that the forward 3 guys, the 2 number 10s and the striker, I think it's going to remain the same, to be honest with you. I don't see any changes. Menu is out. You know, he's not going to be playing. Collier's only coming back from a knock as well, so you're probably going to play Ugarte ahead of Collier with a bit more experience there. So look, I mean, I think Xerxes deserves his spot in the team. He was probably our best player on the weekend against Spurs. Garnacho looked the most dangerous. He was getting into good positions. The only issue with Garnacho is putting the ball in the net. And then, of course, Rasmus Højlund. I mean, what do we do there? Do you bring in Chido Obi? You know, he got 90 seconds on the weekend in play. I don't think that's going to translate into a start against Everton away. So I think that forward line is going to be the same as well, guys. But let me know what you guys would do in the comment section below. What would you change? Would you change anything there that I mentioned? Let me know in the comment section below. Now, score predictions. This is a difficult one, to be quite honest with you, because we're not scoring goals. Everton are. Everton are the informed team. And I think Everton are probably going to be the favourites going into this game. I really do. I think we're going to struggle. I really, really do. I just can't see where the wins are coming from. And I go back to what I've said when we done our Everton segment, that they are the informed team at the moment in the Premier League. I don't see us winning. I really don't. I think it could be close. I don't think Everton will be runaway victors, but Everton at home at the moment are a really, really tough side to beat. I'm going to go with a score prediction of 2-1 to Everton, and I don't like backing against Manchester United. It's very rare that I would say, you know, that United won't win because I want them to win, but yeah, maybe it's a bit of reverse psychology. And you know what I might do? I might back Manchester United to win, or back Everton to win, because generally what I do in a bet the opposite tends to happen. So let me know your score predictions, guys, in the comment section below. But yeah, I'm not overly confident going into this game. But yeah, please do smash a like on the video, guys. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. I appreciate you watching. Like I said, let me know your score predictions in the comment section below. And let me know all your thoughts as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.